My time is so valuable and your time is so valuable. And anybody who is doing like a high level, high value thing, your time is so valuable that it's more important that you become aggressively lazy than it is to actually do the task. And what I mean by that is, yes, you know how to do that task, you know how to do that specific thing, but really your best time is spent making it to where you don't have to do that task ever.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Coffee Break Podcast, where our mission is to share business ideas, practices, and strategies while we enjoy our cup of coffee. Today, we're talking processes. If you're familiar with EOS, if you've read the book Clockwork, if you're in a business and you do things on a regular basis, you are impacted by processes. The challenge is, how do you document them? How do you communicate them? How do you share them? How can you bring new people on board and get them up to speed effectively? Well, that's going to be the topic of conversation today. If you've ever been in a business and you've ever worked at any point in your entire life, you understand the value of easy to follow processes. And that's what we're going to be diving into today. Our guest is Dean Soto, and he is with a company called Prosulum. And he is going to be sharing some of the concepts there that they're doing and how it can impact you. And the thing that I really appreciate about Dean is he gets into the weeds and gives you some really practical ideas. He talks a lot about there's no real secret sauce. Here's some practical applications that you can use. I hope you enjoy the conversation today. But before we jump into that, I do want to ask you to subscribe if you haven't already. Over 200 episodes. It's easy to say that now because we just recently launched our 200th episode. Over 200 episodes for you to check out. You want to go and find them. They're on YouTube. They're on Facebook in video form. They're also on all the podcast platforms. All you have to do is search Loc-Doc Security and Podcast, and you're going to find it. Make sure you subscribe if you're on Facebook or YouTube. And if you're on an audio platform, make sure you hit the subscribe button because we've got more coming out every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Now, grab your cup of coffee and join us for this conversation.
We got so much to say. We got a podcast to make. We're sipping on lattes, and it's time for a coffee break. It's time for a coffee break. Oh, yeah.
Well, Dean, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Chad. I appreciate it, man.
It looks like you've got a lot of stuff happening in this space here. You've got a ring light, some tripods. You've got some things happening here. Is this kind of like your bunker?
This is one of those like mobile mini offices. We live on 20 acres out in the middle of California. Yeah. Yeah. I'm the hillbilly of California. And my house is actually probably about like 1,000 feet that way. My wife kicked me out and was like, you can't have a home office. Go figure something else out. And so, all right, make my own office.
But you also said you have a large family.
Yeah, we have 9 kids. And so me being in the house, there was no work going to get done whatsoever. Yeah. And so
I would have probably built my office more than 1,000 feet away if I had just being honest and transparent. Maybe on the backside of that 20 acres. But anyways, okay. Thank you for being here today. We're going to have a bit of a conversation. Hopefully that'll be beneficial for our audience. But before we do that, the less beneficial conversation is rapid fire, 5 randomly selected questions just to get under your skin with unknown point values. And then to just kind of put icing on the top of that, we'll give you a score at the end. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do this.
I was having a conversation earlier with somebody today, and they were very, very competitive and very concerned about their score, and which that just makes my heart warm. So question number 1, are there any words that you simply can't stand?
Words. No, there's one phrase though, is pick your brain. Like I can't, if someone says, I will almost shut out somebody for saying that. And it's been a pet peeve of mine for years and years and years. But that is the number one thing. If someone says, hey, could I pick your brain about something? For whatever reason, I just do not like that at all. But
all right, just noted that. Don't say, can I pick your brain? That just totally ends the podcast right there. Okay. Question number 2. That's very intriguing. Question number 2. If there are 100 people, how many would be more patient than you?
Probably none. I'm pretty laid back and chill and super patient, to a fault sometimes.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Numerous times I had my Tesla Model S just got smashed by a police car. Got one of my investment properties foundation sinking. All these, and my wife's like, "Are you worried?" And I'm like, "It'll work out. We're good. It'll all work out."
There was a guy that I heard about one time that got a flat tire on the side of the interstate, and he was so chill, he just pulled a camping chair out of the back of his trunk and just sat there on the side of the interstate waiting for some help.
I love it. I love it, man.
Question number 3. Have you ever been punished for something you didn't do?
Oh, yes. I know I have. I don't know what, though. What did I back? Yeah, I think so. My cousin and I, this is when I was probably 13 years old I used to always go and spend probably 2 or 3 months at one of my cousin's house. And he would always get us into trouble, like, all the time. And we were he had I kind of did it, but he had this great idea to go and just leave the house in the middle of the night and go and find one of his friends. And he basically was like, "Oh, my parents don't mind whatsoever." Mm-hmm. And we go out and come back, and I actually got smacked with a belt for one, like, almost the first time by my cousin's parents. And I'm like, okay, that wasn't me. It wasn't my idea.
I participated, but I wasn't the mastermind behind it.
Exactly.
I would say that I probably was guilty of everything that I got punished for as a kid. Right. But I would also agree that most of the time, if I was involved in something controversial and my cousins were involved, it was most definitely their fault. So, all right. I think we're at question number 4, if I'm not mistaken. Question number 4. Is there any place that you have no desire to visit? And if so, why?
Oh, that's going to cause, like, international turmoil. Man, probably Jamaica. Like, I've heard nothing but, like, bad things about it. You have to basically stay in the hotels, and it's pretty shady. Although I do have friends from Jamaica, and they're really cool people, but probably never going to go there, man.
I will say I have been to Jamaica on a cruise ship at a cruise port, and it was it's been a few years, but it was definitely questionable walking from the cruise port to wherever it was that you were going. So I would not disagree with that statement. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
As long as there's some level of protection there. Okay. Final question, number 5. What are your 5 favorite words at the moment?
Ooh, 5 favorite words. These are so hard. I was, like, listening to a whole bunch of these things, and I thought I had heard everything, and not a single one that you said is one that I've heard. Man, 5 favorite words. My kids play Roblox, and they play this game where it's a bunch of ghosts. So I guess Banshee, which is one of the ghosts that, for whatever reason, I just like that word. Liquidity, because that's like an economic thing that's going on right now. Crypto. Whoa, gosh, man, this is hard. I'm just gonna pick two more words. Peanuts and Puma. So
okay. There you go. All right, here's my 5 favorite words. Can I pick your brain?
We're done here. Dude, that's awesome.
Oh, that was easy fruit. Okay. Congratulations. We'll give you a score of 913.
Perfect. That sounds great.
All right. Let's kind of get into the conversation. Man, I appreciate you being here. Thank you very much for participating in Rapid Fire. It's always a blast. So give me a 30,000 foot overview of your business. What is it that you do in the private man cave there on a daily basis?
Yeah. What do? I am pretty much the face of the business, doing things like this, podcast interviews, YouTube channel. I have my Dean Soto YouTube channel, a couple thousand people on there. Podcast, Freedom in 5 Minutes. But my business itself is called Prosulum. It essentially solved a problem that I was facing and that I could not overcome for the life of me. I was running a $2 to $3 million a year drop shipping business on Amazon. That sounds fancy, but if you drop ship, your net margin is usually like 10 to 15%, maybe. And so it's not as fancy as it sounds, although it's kind of cool. I would hire I was doing everything myself, and I would try and hire people. Here in the States, it's obviously very expensive. And so I would try and outsource overseas, and I couldn't keep anybody. I literally created a video course on how to drop ship on Amazon called Dream Drop Shipping back in the day. And I could not even, I give them the course. I thought they would learn it, but they'd get all flustered and they leave. And so I ended up reading a book called Work the System and realized that I was just a horrible leader because I had no standard operating procedures. I had no step-by-step. This is how you do X, Y, Z. I was throwing videos at them, but video doesn't really work in the long term and for scaling. So I was like, okay, I did my first process document, and it took me literally 2 days to do. And when it was done, it was amazing because it worked, but it was also a heck of a lot of work. And then I was able to start keeping my staff and grew from one extra person to like 5 extra people over time. I needed a better way of doing that. And so I essentially created a system that would find people overseas, but also these people would be able to, I could just show a 5-minute video and they would document it, or a 10-minute video, they would document it. So I'm not spending the 2-3 days documenting it. And I had he was actually the guy who did my investment properties. He looked at my calendar and saw I had nothing going on. And he's like, how are you doing that? And I told him, and he's like, can you do that for me? And it just went on from there. I started finding people that would do that exact same thing because they would document everything step by step, and then they would actually do the process as well.
According to a recent study, nearly 50% of burglaries and unauthorized entries happen through propped or unlocked doors. We want to help our community improve this statistic.
At Loc-Doc Security, our customers want locked and latched doors and openings to prevent theft, property damage, or even physical attacks. We are urging everyone not to wait for something to happen. You can be proactive today.
So this is something that I think every business has a challenge with is here's how you do something and here's a documented process to follow. And especially as the business grows, as the processes become more complicated, the challenge obviously increases. Are you familiar with EOS, with traction?
Oh,
okay.
Oh, yeah.
So one of the things that they talk, and I want to ask you this because when you first started talking about this, the first thing that popped in my mind, EOS talks a lot about process documentation, and I think their theory around it is document like 20% of the process, and the remainder will kind of work its way out. When you look at real practical application, how factual is that, and how does that align with what you guys do?
Yeah, it's funny because that's so we use traction in our business, and when I had because we ended up hiring a consultant, one of the certified coaches to come in, and he's like, "Yeah, you just have to do 20%." And I'm thinking, there's no way. I mean, yes, that's better than nothing for sure. Like anything's better than nothing. but 20% of the process, you're going to run into, because for me, the last thing I want is questions all the time. So, you give a task and then you're going to get questions and this just is back and forth. Why not? Because I see their point, because, you finish this whole entire process document. This is a whole entire SOP. Things are going to change. Things are going to be in flux. Now you're just literally going to keep on doing that all the time as user interfaces change on your software or whatever. You're going to be constantly updating, and whoever that might be on your team doing that, or everybody. But when you do it this way, when you essentially, there's not a secret sauce to what we do. Really, it's if you record a video and have somebody else doing it, and my time's this valuable, and it's not a knock on them at all, but their time is here, this valuable when it comes to per hour. You do a video, say there's a user update to we use 90.io for EOS. There's a user interface change. I just have to go up on the on the software, say, okay, this has changed. This used to be here. Now please edit this and move this over here, and boom. And that's it. I send it to them. It gets documented. You can get to 99, 100% really easily, because you're not the one actually doing it. Mm-hmm. You're not, when you have the boss constantly updating documents, yeah, definitely 20%, but not when you have this kind of system set up.
So, and this may be part of what you offer. So I'm just kind of intrigued by this, because this is a real challenge. I mean, we've struggled with this in our business, and I talk to folks all the time, and this is always a challenge is, one, transfer of knowledge, simple to follow processes, people doing the same thing over and over again. And when you talk to any business that's looking at franchising or continuing to scale up at any point, having a way to be able to share those processes, or have a process that is so easy to follow that it doesn't require a whole lot of training. It's just user intuitive, right? Yep. When it comes to that, what is a good proven way to be able to resource that that document? Where does it live? Because this is the challenge. I can tell you historically in our organization, we started years ago with who knows what it was, maybe a Word document. And then we started using Evernote. And then that became, not productive or not effective to be able to connect. And we just moved down the line to 13 different things. Yeah. Where does it live so that, it's consistent? Because by the time, and this is a long question, I know, but by the time you get to documenting these different processes, or you hire somebody to document these processes, they're there. And then you go, oh, well, we don't use that software anymore, or we don't use that thing anymore. Now we need a new process to talk about where you go find our processes.
Yeah, that's funny, man. I totally have been there. Yeah, so honestly, when I first started this, it was in one Word document, just like you. And then you quickly start to realize as it gets bigger and bigger, there's no way it ends up being a nightmare. I went to another software called Process Street. And, there's Trainual, there's Process Street, there's all these different softwares. I ran into a nightmare with Process Street where they changed it so much so to where you could not export everything you did. So you would have to stick with them. Mm-hmm. And luckily, I only had 100 and something process documents, which is a lot, obviously. But it showed me right then and there that I need to have full control over what we do. So I actually, as dumb as it sounds, but it works, and I always recommend it, is I just use Google Docs, man. I go Google Drive. And part of the nightmare when it comes to these things is that it's always in one place or one thing. It really comes down to, in order to make it usable, it comes down to actual structure and then also use of the things. Okay, so this is going to be super nerdy for anybody who is not super interested in this, but it will completely change the game for you. So what I mean is that, like, using something like Google Drive or something, it can be on your server, it could be whatever, but you control it. You'd have one folder, overarching folder called SOP or something like that. And then within each one of those, within that one, you would have several different things. And I always number them, actually, like 1.0, 2.0, different folders. So 1.0 is our general administration folder. This is like how to set up accounts for people, how to bring new people in and stuff. 2.0 is management folder. Only managers can get into that. And it's all like payroll and everything. 3.0, 4.0. 4.0 might be social media marketing. 5.0 might be direct marketing, whatever it is. And then within each one of those, so let's say we have a direct mail marketing. I go into that folder. That's where the actual process documents live. And each document is its own number. So direct mail marketing might be how to find a good direct mail marketing supplier for like doing postcards or something like that. So that might be, so if it's 5.0 folder is direct mail marketing, 5.01 is that specific process. 5.02 is how to send postcards using Zen Direct or something like that. And you just literally, it's each little task. And when you do it that way, you can actually use things like a project management software or whatever to say, hey, I need you to send out postcards in the California area. And the task can literally just say, do 5.02, 5.03, 5.04. That's it. Then they just go and do that task for the California area of whatever, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. When you structure it that way, you start becoming it's like having all these little puzzle pieces, you're just making these little puzzle pieces. And then you can start directing people and people know where things are at. And even if they don't know exactly where it's at, they know, okay, I'm doing social media marketing. I go to the social media folder and then I can go and search. Yeah.
So you created effectively a nomenclature for your processes so that you can keep them structured and organized. When it comes to that, because I would imagine, let me just, from our perspective and internally in our organization, this has been a big challenge. Is one, what do you name it so that it's easily searchable and can be found? Where does it go so that it can be easily accessible to everybody in the organization? And then what are the trigger points? Because we've documented 30 things or 100 things, and then did we already document this? What terms did we use for that particular thing? How do I know if it was done or not done? And then if there are iterations to it, how do we notate the changes that were made? Like, these are the challenges. And I think, and you know your customer base better than I do, but from our perspective, you get stuck in a business on worrying about how do we get it structured and how do we create the hierarchy and the architecture around it that we never even get started on the processing and the documentation.
100%. And that's why we actually tell people, like, so especially for people who are just getting started in that way of thinking of just systems, processes, documentation, things like that. A lot of them want to outline or come up with a structure, and then they get overwhelmed and stuff. We literally just tell them, no, just record a video. What do you want done? What is it? And then, for our guys, we have like account managers that help them along the way to how to structure things and everything like that. But as you're doing it and you see it get actually documented with, pictures and stuff like that, that's the other valuable thing of doing it with video. And like I said, it's not a secret sauce. Anyone can do this. You just have someone take screenshots and document and stuff. you'll start to see the actual documentation get done and start seeing things get done in general. And you're like, holy crap, this works. And then that's when, as time goes on, you're going to have to develop. If you have the overall or kind of idea of the structure of what you want in your head, it will work to your advantage if you just do and build and grow. And then, the puzzle pieces are going to always get messy. It's that you have a 500,000 piece puzzle set. Things are going to be all over the place, but it's still doable. And when it's done, it's going to look amazing, or it's going to be amazing. But overall, like with what we found is the most successful way of doing things is that specific structure of like what I said before, where you have the folders, and then the subfolders that are numbered and especially when you're doing things that are like, when you have, I don't know what you call it, but it's kind of like conditional things. So like, for example, every month you might have payroll to do, and you put that into one task on Asana or Monday.com or whatever task management system you're using. Payroll that goes to the controller or whatever. Every month it pops up, but in that task you can say, run payroll, do 6.02, 6.05, 6.7, 6.10, and it just, they don't even have to think about it. They just go to it.
Well, I think your point, it holds true here, and I've got some hopefully questions that will maybe help some people in the audience. But running payroll in just that simple process, the person in your organization that does it now knows the 13 steps that are required to do it. And they're the only person that knows the 13 steps that are required to do it. And what you're saying is, and I think what we all kind of run into as a challenge is, what does it matter? This person's doing it, or maybe the owner does it, so it is what it is. And so this process, it just happens. Like, I know I have one simple task that says run payroll. I know internally what I need to do. For me particularly, I have several weekly things that I have to do, reports that I have to provide or whatever. And I can have literally 3 letters on a task, and I know exactly what I have to do, but nobody else has any clue as to what's involved in that process. And mentally, there's this hurdle of saying, why do I need to stop and document this? I'm the one that does it. I already internally know what I need to do. Why do I need to document that process?
Yeah, I run into that all the time. And it's funny because it's a very big, I don't know if it is, I mean, it's definitely a mindset change, but sometimes I sound really arrogant.
Just come on, just say it, Dean.
All right. But my time is so valuable, and your time is so valuable. And anybody who is doing like a high level, high value thing, your time is so valuable that it's more important that you become aggressively lazy than it is to actually do the task. And what I mean by that is, yes, you know how to do that task, you know how to do that specific thing, but really your best time is spent making it to where you don't have to do that task ever. And I had a recent thing happen where one of my main guys, because I drink my own Kool-Aid, but sometimes I don't. One of my main guys was doing some really shady stuff because I had let go a bunch of things, and I had to let him go. And he had been doing things. It's funny. He had been doing things that were super easy to do. And I thought he was doing these grandiose stuff, and I was paying him a lot of money for it. And it comes to find out he wasn't doing much at all it was just super simple stuff, payroll wise and things of that nature. So I go in there And the first thing I do is I look and I'm like, he's literally spending 10 hours doing this really low level repetitive stuff. And for me, my mind immediately goes to, okay, well, I'm going to create a video, show exactly what this is, and have somebody else do it. And then just put a check and balance. So when because now I know that shady stuff's happening, now I have somebody else that can check. I'll have a process for somebody else to check that being done. The more that you can get into that mindset of your time, you have to do the thing, but why not record what you're doing and then pay somebody else to document? They don't even have to have access to whatever it is you're showing, because they can just take screenshots of the video itself, pay them, even if it's $20 an hour, $25 an hour, or whatever. It's your time is way more valuable. Let them document it. You're doing it anyway. And then you never have to do that thing again. You won't run into times where if you stop work, you start losing money, or if somebody leaves, you're screwed. Now you have an extra 10, 20 hours of work on your plate or whatever. That I don't know if that makes sense what I'm saying, but once you change your brain to think of, I'm doing this thing, my job right now is to figure out how I should not be doing this thing. Yeah. And it changes so much of the game for you.
At Loc-Doc Security, we know that managing access to your facility can be challenging and time-consuming. From making sure new hires have access from day one to setting time restrictions for on-site vendors, Loc-Doc Security offers a wide range of solutions to help you manage any size facility. Take full control of your buildings, grant and revoke access quickly and easily, guaranteeing your facility's safety inside and out. Loc-Doc Security, your access management solution.
I would also say that, I'm saying this and probably saying it to myself more so than anything, is the times that you actually follow this process, you record the process, and I will say that this has been my challenge wholeheartedly, is when you say, okay, record this process and so we can document it, and then you look at it and go, oh, we need to redo this whole process. This is very, very inefficient. Like, we've got to solve this problem. And so we spend the time to improve the process, and then we have to scrap that whole document and start all over again. But the point, I guess, is there's a value in recording that, documenting it, and going, oh, we are wasting 3 hours a day doing something that does not need to be done. So here's a way to improve that. You get a lot of value out of that. It's the discipline, and I guess, ironically, it's the discipline and then the process, having a process by which you can record and get it documented, because that's the hardest part. Like, yeah, I can record this all day long because I do it all day long. Also, who do we hand it to so that it can be documented? Because if it's up to me, I'm not going to get it done.
Yeah. No, it's a good thing. Good question. It's interesting. Your first comment of like, when you are recording, you're like, and you start thinking that, man, this is so inefficient. Why are we doing this way? I always tell, I had one of my buddies, Matt, who was a client he ran like a oil lubrication delivery business. And he had this process. We sat there. I got on Zoom with him just because he was a friend of mine. And I'm like, okay, take me to the process, man. Just talk, just go. And it was so long and so inefficient. And he felt so bad at the end that he's like, oh man, I'm so sorry for wasting your time and everything. And this is such a bad process. And I immediately said, dude, you have a process, and we're getting it documented. That is like step number one. Who cares? Like now when this gets documented, everybody else can do it. It can be the suckiest process ever, the most inefficient, but now you're not the only one doing it. Who cares? Now, getting that documented, obviously he used my guys, but in reality, I mean, like I said, even if you were able to find somebody, my oldest daughter or her high school friends or whatever would pay, I'd gladly pay them $20, $25 an hour. Here's how I need this documented. I have a little process on how to create processes. It's very useful to have, by the way. And they go and they can type in and do the entire document. It might take them 10 hours, $200 or $250. And that's not my time. I never have to do that thing ever again. If it takes them 10 hours to do straight, cool. Now my entire staff can do that. Now I can go on vacation. Now I can go and worry about something else. And I can worry about, okay, how can I fix that process? Now I can have somebody else doing it on over here. Now I'm looking at the actual process and improving it while that person's doing the old way. It's just the mindset that you have to have.
Or at least you say, hey, here's the start of the process, and you can improve it significantly, improve and delete steps as necessary. But here's at least where it is now.
Totally.
So a couple of questions that, because I want to make sure that if somebody's listening to this or watching this, that they go, okay, here's some tactical things. Obviously, you provide this service, so that you can help with consulting, or your team can help consult with exactly how this happens. A couple of questions that you should be asking, because you mentioned several different pieces of software. Trainual was one of them. I mentioned Evernote. Those work for certain things. There's challenges with all of them, meaning, and you mentioned it, what happens if I no longer want to use that service and I want to retrieve all of my documents? What does that process look like? And that is a question, I think, when you're looking at any software across the board, you've got to ask that question. What happens to the data if I so choose to not utilize this software anymore? And those are all good questions to ask. So the process that you discussed was using a Google Docs file structure, and that would carry over to a Dropbox, to a OneDrive, to a whatever Microsoft's thing is, and basically creating some components there that's just a normal file architecture. What are some other things that people should be asking, or things people should be looking at when they're thinking, okay, I need a process development or a process documentation set up? What are the questions that they need to be asking and looking for, because so that they don't get into that situation where we just invested thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours into documenting all these processes, and now we can't do anything with them.
Yeah, that's a really good question. The reason why I go with the Google Drive side of things is I don't know if it's government regulation or whatever. They have a whole thing on that you can export stuff. I always try to be as I would say that, don't go big in the beginning. There are so many different softwares out there, so many different consulting things. I would say don't even go with us. We outsource the whole, this is we're an outsource company. We're a business process outsourcing company. So you get a team, but you also get us. I would say don't even go with us. The biggest thing I think is probably to even start just by reading a book, Work the System by Sam Carpenter, or Clockwork by Mike Michalowicz, or something of that nature, just to get your mind wrapped around it, and then start on one thing. I highly recommend Google Drive. It could be OneNote. It can be anything like that, where it's not this big leap into a process document type software, because you're going to get stuck. They'll change one thing on you, you'll get stuck. Even with Evernote, Evernote's amazing. I've been with them since 2007. I still use them. I sometimes I even forget. I see their annual thing pop up, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot I have Evernote. Let's take a picture of something. But Yeah, I mean, start with one process. Do it in Google Docs. I wouldn't suggest like the reason I like Google Doc or Google Drive is it's searchable. So Dropbox and things like that. It's searchable, but it's not as searchable. And just start getting the mindset and work on one thing. This is what I always tell people is work on something that's either going to make you money or save you a ton of time. Like one thing that you absolutely hate doing, and take it off your plate. And that will be the catalyst for growing into the next thing and the next thing. But start small. Don't go get EOS traction and learn the system and then get 90.io and get all these different things and then pay for it. I know they have their own software that they're building and stuff. Just start small.
I think that's valuable advice, and not to jump on the Google fanboy wagon, but it is incredible the searching capabilities that the thing has. You can upload a scanned PDF document, and it will find words in that. And when you type it into your search on your Google Drive, it is amazing. Anyways, and we neither one of us have an affiliation with clicking the link to get Google Drive, which is unfortunate, right? So what final thoughts? Because I know I think we've probably captured a lot of knowledge base from you, but the kind of takeaways that I'm looking at here is basically start small. Here's the 5 processes that we think we can get the most value out of by documenting. Let's just focus on those and see where we can access them, see how it can transfer. Don't think about the thousands of processes that you've got to document. Start with the 5, get those done, and then go from there. You've given a book recommendation, Work the System, as well as Clockwork. Those are both, I've never read Work the System, but Clockwork is definitely. And then my favorite statement that you have made today is become aggressively lazy. Be intentional about getting those processes documented so that it's not solely reliant on you or one individual to do that.
That I can't take credit for aggressively lazy. I learned that from one of my clients named Richard Matthews, and I was like, "That is so genius." Yeah. So no, that's a great summary, man.
If somebody wants to try to use your service to connect up with you and say, "Hey, you know what? I am actually really good at screen recording whatever I'm doing and sending it off to somebody so that I don't have to worry about it anymore, and I need somebody to kind of walk me through the paces on this," what do they need to do?
Prosulum.com, prosulum.com. Horrible branding, but we do an amazing service. So just Inc. 5,000 not too long ago, or 2022. So it's been pretty sweet.
That's awesome. You were telling the story about how you kind of came up with that name earlier. And I remember years ago, we were trying to think of a catchy name for a product that we were trying to put together. And we had all of these words written on the board. And the Greek meaning of this and that and the other. And I was like, so when we tell somebody that it's this name, they're going to say, "What is it?" And we're going to say, "Oh, it's this." And I was like, let's just name it that.
That's what I should have done.
It's horrible. It's horrible. It's ugly. It's long. It's not catchy at all, but it is what it is. So
love
that's
it.
Great. All right. Well, hey, I tell you what, Dean, I appreciate your time today. It's been amazing. Hopefully that there's been some value for our audience as well. And, above all else, I really appreciate you letting me pick your brain today.
Oh man, Chad, we're never doing this again. No, just kidding.
Dean, thank you for joining us today, man. It was a blast chatting with you. Lots of fun and very encouraging. I think I'm excited to get some more processes documented inside of our organization and make sure we're continuing to follow that process. Thank you for joining us today. If this is your first time and you found this valuable, make sure you share it with somebody that you might know and subscribe if you haven't already. New episodes Tuesday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, non-daylight savings, whatever that means. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time right here on the Coffee Break Podcast.